If there are two sides to Didier Drogba, then they started drifting apart very early on.
Tu vas devenir footballeur. C'était rêve. C'est fort, c'est plus fort que ça.
Les seules conversations qu'il avait, c'était foot. Toujours foot.
His cousins and his uncle Michel became a second family. He left his parents back home in the Ivory Coast. He was very young.
I went with my uncle in France at 5 years old.
Michel Goba earned himself a living in the French lower leagues. Wherever he went, young Didier had to follow. It was a stark education, a nomadic childhood, which eventually led to Paris and to an amateur club called Levallois. Their stadium has nearly vanished, but the memories of the young Drogba are as fresh as they are honest.
C'était quelqu'un de très physique, technique, mais devant le but, maladroit. C'est pas un Pelé, hein. C'était pas un Pelé.
No Pelé, but he had enough to get noticed.
On dit toujours que les pommes sur un pommier, elles tombent pas en même temps, elles mûrissent pas en même temps. Lui, ça a été ça. Il lui a fallu 4 ans pour vraiment apprendre le métier de footballeur.
At 18, Mark Westerlop took him to Le Mans as an apprentice.
On s'était dit, ça va faire un bon joueur de deuxième division, voire peut-être de première division, mais d'abord un bon joueur de deuxième division.
A late starter then, something that Ian Wright knows all about. What age were you then, when you got your first contract?
22.
22, the same age as Drogba.
I just thought that it just wasn't meant to happen. I just thought I wasn't going to be a footballer. It was a case of catching up all the time. And what I found is that you never catch up.
Suddenly, though, at 25, it happened. Marseille meant big time. But a goal against Porto changed things once more. Jose Mourinho was about to move, and so, reluctantly, was he.
It was in the pocket. I say it's fantastic, but I don't want to go.
He couldn't have been unhappier. Chelsea and Drogba were no natural fit. At first, both player and fans were locked in a standoff. His first seasons, for all their great successes, were weakened by doubt and a serious PR problem. Est-ce qu'il a prolongé?
Oui.
So many times I've watched him, I've had to get up and leave the room. I said, this kid's doing my head in.
Moi, quand on discute, je lui dis, moi, j'étais un bon plongeur, mais toi, il faut essayer de rester debout. Le public, ça sifflait, d'autres. Mais il avait toujours la confiance de Mourinho. Didier doit être reconnaissant. Et il a été reconnaissant par rapport à lui. Et peut-être un jour, ils se retrouveront.
The cup final of 2007. On the final whistle, Mourinho vanished and Drogba went chasing after him. It was to be the last trophy they would win together. 6 months later, his mentor was gone.
Red card for Didier Drogba.
And his demons grew noisier. Now 30, just how many more finals would there be?
Well, is this going to be a yellow card for Ian Wright? I think it is. And that would mean he's out of the final.
That is where the non-league kind of Sunday morning kind of like attitude may have taken over. And I think I never ever got rid of that.
It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace.
I could totally relate to just doing something stupid and flipping out like that. I've done it so many times myself. We never had a football schooling. You maybe maintain some of the rawness, which is always in there, ready to blow.
Il aime pas perdre. C'est normal.
C'est un problème. His family protect his flaws, are proud of his game, and are convinced of his future.
Il va aller encore plus haut. On ne pourra pas le décourager comme ça, parce que tant qu'il n'a pas gagné la Coupe d'Europe, il va lutter pour la gagner.
So much is true. Under Hiddink, the football is back. Drogba is now as good as ever. The centre-forward, uncontainable and on the edge. Catching up? Well, he's certainly getting close. And who knows, one day, he might even make it.
Teddy, does Drogba inspire you, frustrate you, or what?
Ooh, a little bit of everything, I think, Steve. I think outstanding player. If I was a centre-half, I wouldn't want to play against him. But I find him quite disrespectful in the way he acts. Some of the things he says, quite disrespectful to the club that he plays for and the players that he's playing alongside at times, you know. But having said that, he could go, with the talent that he's got, he could go out and score a hat-trick today and say what a player he is.
If you had big money to spend this summer, very big money to spend this summer, you'd have to be careful, wouldn't you?
I think so. I think if you're spending in the likes of £30, £35 million now, you've got to know what you're going to get. And I think with Didier Drogba, he was a different player at the start of the season. You really don't know what you're going to get each week when you turn up. Are we going to get the sulky star that isn't sure, doesn't like the manager, where he's playing him, what he's going to do for the team, or are we going to be this? Are we going to see this big, strong centre forward knocking people about, shooting from 35 yards and getting goals that other players aren't capable of? You just never know.
Do you think they'd be better off without him, Ted, next year? Do you think now that we've seen the best of Drogba in a Chelsea shirt and it's time to maybe cash in?
Well, it depends. Depends what manager you get that comes in. If Ancelotti comes in, will he like Drogba? Will he like his antics? Will he put his arm around him and say, you're the best centre forward in the country or in the world, I'm going to build my team around you, you know, you're going to be the big star? Then he might perform. If he doesn't, if he's not so sure about him and he's got to prove himself to Ancelotti, then it might be a different scenario, mightn't it? And then you wouldn't.
The player would take a lot of replacing. The player would take a lot of replacing. So things around him, I mean, he gives a bad feel to the team at times. You saw his behaviour after the Barcelona game, when everybody that watched the game felt aggrieved for Chelsea. You know, it was a little bit unjust. I don't think the referee was as bad as was made out, but nevertheless, things had gone against them. And then 10 minutes after the game, because of Drogba's antics, everybody was glad Barcelona had won. All the neutrals came down heavily on Barcelona's side. So you can do that for your side. The diving gives no credit to him. And you mentioned the word lack of respect. But then when you actually get back to the player that's capable of 25 goals of the season, he's 6'2", 6'3", he's got lightning pace, he can finish, and he can be a top centre forward. You just wish that at 30, that he'd get rid of all the surrounding stuff, you know, because there's no need for it. There's no need for it.
But what he does do is score in the big finals for Chelsea. He's scored in every one of their major domestic finals. Scored here 2 years ago, got the winner against Manchester United as well. He delivers.
As a fan, I wish he wasn't playing today, put it that way. I'm very aware. I mean, that's a terrific goal, all-round goal that we're seeing there. He can head the ball, he can unsettle people, he's physically very strong. He can have a deft touch at times, and he said that he can drive you mad.
Yeah.
But
are Chelsea the same without him? That's the thing. I mean, Anelka really prospered at the start of the season, scored lots of goals, finished up top scorer, and yet when Chelsea are at their absolute max, at their very best, invariably you look at him and you think he's kind of at the heart of it, you know.